William Shakespeare. You know the name. He's probably the most celebrated, most quoted, and most influential writer, well, ever. But here's the crazy thing. For a guy whose words are literally everywhere, the man himself is a total mystery. So today, let's try and peel back some of those layers.
I mean, you know this line, right? All the world's a stage. We all do. It just shows you how huge his cultural footprint is, stretching across 400 years. His stories, his poems, they become the language we use to talk about everything. Love, jealousy, power, you name it. But, and this is the big but, here's the paradox. While we can quote him all day long, the actual documented life of William Shakespeare, it's shockingly thin. It is full of these giant gaping holes, a few public records, and a whole lot of educated guesses.
Which brings us to the big question, doesn't it? If we push aside the myths and the legends for a second, who was the real guy from Stratford-upon-Avon? Let's dive in and try to separate the hard facts from the really fascinating fiction.
Okay, first things first. Before we get into the wild stuff, we have to build a foundation. Let's look at what the historical record can actually for sure tell us about his life.
So this timeline kind of lays out the skeleton of his life. We know he was baptized in 1564. By 1592, he's a big deal in London, so successful that other playwrights are already getting jealous and attacking him in print. He builds this incredible career, invests his money in the Globe Theatre, and retires a pretty wealthy man. But you see that gap between 1585 and 1592? That's our first huge mystery.
They call them the lost years. For 7 straight years, the historical record just goes silent. Poof, he's gone. What was he doing? Was he a soldier, a school teacher traveling Europe? Was he on the run from the law? The truth is, we just don't know. And this biographical black hole is exactly where all the speculation and the big debates really begin.
And you have to appreciate his incredible journey. I mean, this was the son of a glove maker from a small town. He didn't go to university, as far as we know, and yet he didn't just become this brilliant artist. He became a super savvy businessman. He was a shareholder in his own company, a major landowner. He really played the game and he won.
All right, so we have the known facts down. Now let's pivot to the great unknowns. These are the controversies that have kept scholars, and let's be honest, the rest of us, completely fascinated for centuries.
And here it is, the big one, the question that has launched 1,000 conspiracy theories. Could a man from his background really have written all those masterpieces? This is the famous authorship question.
Okay, so it breaks down like this. On one side, you've got the doubters. They just can't believe that a guy without a fancy university degree can know so much about court politics, law, and foreign countries. There's a bit of classism in there, for sure. On the other side, you have pretty much all mainstream scholars who point to, the actual evidence. We have contemporary records, other writers talking about him, and oh yeah, his name right there on the title pages of the plays. The case for the man from Stratford is really, really strong.
All right, our next mystery takes us into his personal faith. Shakespeare lived in a really turbulent time in England. It was a brand new Protestant country, and being a Catholic could be seriously dangerous. So, what did he really believe deep down?
This theory that Shakespeare might have been a secret Catholic has actually become a pretty respectable idea in academic circles. His family definitely had Catholic connections, and some scholars see all sorts of hidden Catholic themes in his plays. Things like purgatory and confession. It's a really compelling theory, but without a diary entry saying, "I'm a Catholic," it's always going to be speculation.
And then there are the Sonnets, 154 poems that are just unbelievably passionate and beautiful. But here's the twist. Many of them aren't addressed to a woman. They're written to this mysterious figure called the Fair Youth, which, as you can imagine, raises some very personal questions. So, what do we do with this? Well, some scholars read these sonnets and see a clear confession of Shakespeare's romantic love for another man, a window straight into his soul. But others argue that, hold on, this was a literary convention of the time. They say these poems were more like artistic exercises, exploring ideas of love and patronage, not a literal diary. The bottom line, there is absolutely no consensus. So we've got the man, we've got the mysteries. But you know what isn't a mystery at all? His legacy. What he left behind is solid, it's undisputed, and it is just monumental. I mean, just stop and think about the sheer volume of his work. 39 plays that basically created the DNA for modern comedy, tragedy, and history. 154 sonnets that completely redefined what a love poem could be. It's a whole universe of human experience, all captured in words.
And this is the part that just blows my mind. His language is still our language. I mean it. Have you ever tried to break the ice? Or been on a wild goose chase? Know someone with a heart of gold? Yep. All of those phrases, and literally hundreds more, came straight from his pen. He didn't just use the English language. In a way, he built it.
Now, to put his influence into perspective, get this. There's only one book in the entire Western world that has been quoted more often than Shakespeare. Just let that sink in for a second. We're talking about an influence so massive that a single writer's words have echoed through our culture with the same kind of power as Scripture. And maybe that's the whole point in the end. Maybe the reason Shakespeare's still so important isn't because we figured out the puzzle of his life. Maybe it's because his work gives us the tools to figure out the puzzles in our own lives. His characters, their problems, they're just so fundamentally, timelessly human.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. We can argue forever about who he was, what he believed, what he did during those lost years, but the real connection, the magic, happens when you actually engage with the words. So beyond all the mysteries, which story, which character, which single line speaks most directly to you? Because that's where the real Shakespeare still lives.